Silas Rourke wakes up strapped to a gurney on Mire Basilica, a so-called neutral station where rules matter more than lives. A cold screen above his head says care is restricted, and an audit clock is counting down to the moment compliance walks in and closes the case. Doctor Elyra Sorn has one illegal option that could keep him breathing, but it will also make him visible to every scanner on the station. The second she uses it, Silas is no longer just a patient. He becomes a valuable incident. And when two factions and a hidden market all decide you are worth more as property than as a person, the real question is not how you escape. It is what you are willing to become to survive. Silas Rourke needed one thing, and he needed it now. He needed air that did not feel like broken glass. He woke on a gurney in the needle ward of Mire Basilica. People called the station neutral because it sounded safer than honest. Soft restraints held his wrists and ankles. They were not there to punish him, only to keep nurses from being blamed if he thrashed. A screen near his head showed clean lines of text with a cold verdict. The console displayed a line that read Care Limit Statute, Human Patient, Restricted Interventions. Dr. Elyra Sorn stood beside him. She was an industrial medic with a calm face and tired eyes. She was already working and already losing. She did not bother pretending otherwise. Two factions ran Mire Basilica in different ways. The Solstice Compliance Directorate kept rules tight and hallways quiet. House Mneme kept black markets fed and secrets priced. Both sides shared one habit. They took anything unusual. They made it someone else's property. Silas swallowed and tasted antiseptic and hot metal. Where am I? Silas said. In Needle Ward, inside Mire Basilica, Elyra said. It is neutral until the paperwork says it isn't. His chest tightened as each breath came shallow. He could feel fluid, thick and stubborn, refusing to let his lungs open. Elyra tapped the screen, and the scan darkened another shade. A soft chime sounded above them, polite as an airport gate announcement. Elyra glanced at it, and her jaw set. The console displayed a line that read, Audit Clock Active. On Mire Basilica, the audit clock was an inspection countdown. When it hit 0, compliance walked in with scanners and seals. If you were not in policy by then, you did not get treated. Boots rang in the corridor, measured and close. Warden Lysander Quill stepped through the curtain with two officers at his shoulders. His uniform was plain and his posture controlled. His eyes moved like they were reading labels on crates. Dr. Sorn, report, Quill said. His lungs are failing and he needs invasive stabilization, Elyra said. Quill's gaze flicked to the screen. Care Limit Statute is active. Audit is pending, Quill said. No invasive intervention without oversight, Quill said. That will kill him, Elyra said. It will keep the station compliant, Quill said. He leaned slightly towards Silas and kept his voice even. Your presence raises liability, Quill said. You were brought in under emergency triage only, Quill said. Do not mistake that for permission. Silas tried to pull in a deeper breath and failed. His vision pinched at the edges. How long? Silas said. How long until your rules finish me? Quill did not look away. Until the audit clock clears, Quill said. Or until your body does. Elyra's fingers tightened around her tablet. The officers shifted, ready to turn soft restraints into something firmer if Silas panicked. I'm not trying to start trouble, Silas said. I'm trying to stay alive. Quill held the stare a beat longer, then nodded to the door sensor. Seal this bay, Quill said. No visitors, Quill said. No transport. Keep him quiet. A locked tone sounded and the curtains settled back into place. Quill left like a man who believed silence was a kind of control. Elyra watched the corridor camera light blink, and she looked down at Silas. The calm on her face cracked just enough to show anger underneath. They will come back with better scanners, Elyra said, with auditors who like clean endings. Silas swallowed again and kept his breathing small. Then do not give them one, Silas said. Elyra stared at the sealed cabinet across the bay. The cabinet had been denying her all night. Human lockout, protocol restriction, denied. She reached under her cart and pulled out a small case that did not belong in a legal clinic. It looked like a tool kit you would hide in a work truck, plain and unmarked. What is that? Silas said. A mistake, or a choice, Elyra said. Elyra, moved with the fast, quiet discipline of someone who has watched people die while forms get signed. She slid the case onto the cart and popped it open. Inside was a single injector and a thin vial nested in foam. The fluid was almost clear, with a faint sheen like heat shimmer on asphalt. Silas tried to sit up and the restraint stopped him. Pain flashed along his ribs, and he forced himself back down. Elyra checked the bay camera again, then the door seal. She kept her voice low, like the walls could invoice her for sound. This is a neural catalyst graft, Elyra said. It pushes your nervous system to process faster. It can keep you functional long enough to survive, Elyra said. Silas heard the cost in the way she spoke. And what does it take? Silas said. It can break you if you push too hard, Elyra said. Too much noise, too much light, panic that hits like a wave. Then your body will not know how to come down, Elyra said. Silas stared at the ceiling pipes and forced another shallow breath. He did not want a miracle. He wanted time. Why do you have it? Silas said. Because I work on a station that calls death compliance, Elyra said. And I got tired of watching people die the right way. Outside the curtain, voices passed and a cart rolled by. Somewhere deeper in Needleward, another chime sounded. The audit clock kept moving. Silas turned his head enough to meet her eyes. If you do nothing, I die, Silas said. If I do this, I lose everything, Elyra said. Silas kept his voice even. You already know what you were going to do, Silas said. Elyra exhaled once, controlled, like bracing for a cold plunge. She clipped a small monitor to his finger and another to his throat. Do not fight it, Elyra said. Do not try to stand. Let it settle. Silas gave a tight nod. Do it, Silas said. Elyra placed the injector at the side of his neck. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. For a brief second, she looked like someone praying without believing in prayer. Then she pressed. Heat hit Silas like a poured drink of fire. His spine arched and the restraints snapped tight. His vision flooded white, and he tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. Elyra was already moving, adjusting the bed angle, slapping a cooling patch against his collar. She tracked the numbers like a countdown. Stay with me, Elyra said. His body made a hard decision on its own. His heart hammered, then found a new rhythm. The pain in his chest stopped spreading and pulled inward, sharp and focused. The problem felt narrowed down. The room came back in pieces. The hum of the air recycler and the tiny click of Elyra's glove on the cart rail returned first. Far footsteps in the corridor followed, and they did not match staff cadence. Silas blinked, and his eyes snapped into focus faster than they should have. Elyra froze, staring at his face like she was seeing a different patient. Relief and fear tangled together in her expression. You are awake, Elyra said. Silas swallowed, and his throat was raw. His mind felt clean, too clean. He listened again and realized he could count the steps outside. 2 people, 1 heavy boot, 1 lighter. Did you just make me visible? Silas said. Elyra pulled her tablet close and scanned the alerts stacking up. The console displayed a line that read, Overtone spike detected, unregistered neural profile. Her jaw tightened. Yes, Elyra said. Now the station can smell you. The first sound at the bay door was not a knock. It was authority asking politely before it took what it wanted. Elyra wiped her hands and smoothed her posture. She opened the curtain like nothing was wrong. Auditor Maya Rusk stepped in with a portable scanner rig floating behind her. Rusk wore no heavy armor because her weapon was the rig and the paperwork it fed. Her eyes went straight to Silas, then to Elyra, then to the sealed cabinet. Dr. Sorn, your patient is trending outside legal margins, Rusk said. Elyra kept her voice flat. Humans do that, Elyra said. Rusk smiled like she had heard every excuse and stored them all. Not like this, Rusk said. The station flagged an overtone spike in this bay, Rusk said. That is not a human problem. That is a policy problem. The scanner drifted closer and its lens rotated. A soft beam washed over Silas' throat. Silas held his face still and forced his breathing slow. The new wiring in his head wanted to react. Elyra stepped half a pace into the beam path. You will contaminate a medical scene, Elyra said. This is a compliance scene now, Rusk said. Another lock tone sounded from the corridor. Warden Quill's seal tightened the bay like a fist. Silas felt the walls shrink, not physically, but in the way the options narrowed. Rusk tapped her tablet. Seal and file order is ready, Rusk said. If the spike confirms, you both become an incident. And incidents get closed, Rusk said. Elyra did not plead or raise her voice. She reached down and took Silas' hand for a brief second. It looked small and ordinary. It was a choice made in public. I'll get you to care that does not ask permission, Elyra said. Silas squeezed her fingers once. Then tell me where to move, Silas said. Elyra straightened and faced Rusk. The rig is misreading, Elyra said. This corridor has interference, Elyra said. The needleward recycler is failing and the field is dirty. Rusk did not buy it, and she did not have to. The scanner chirped sharper, and the lens paused at Silas' throat. Silas heard his pulse and the tiny motor in the rig. He heard the breath of the officer behind Rusk. His mind calculated distance, angle, timing. It offered a clean path to violence. Elyra moved first and kept it simple. She dropped a thin hush film patch on the scanner housing with a practice slap. The beam wobbled. Rusk took one step forward. "Remove that," Rusk said. Silas used the half-second Elyra bought. He rolled his wrist, testing the restraint. The band slid a fraction. He looked at Elyra, and she gave the smallest nod. They were not going to win by arguing. They were going to win by leaving. Silas pulled once, hard and smart, and the restraint clip popped free with a dry snap. He kept his movement small, like a patient shifting in bed. Rusk noticed anyway, and her eyes sharpened. "Stop," Rusk said. Silas swung his legs off the gurney. Pain punched through his ribs. He stood, steadying himself on the cart rail, and listened for a corridor gap. Elyra grabbed her case and stepped close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "On my count," Elyra said. Silas nodded once and kept his face tired. Rusk lifted her tablet to call the SEAL team. Elyra spoke clearly, loud enough for the mic to catch. "Patient is at risk of collapse," Elyra said. "If you restrain movement, you assume medical liability." Rusk hesitated because liability was the one language every system understood. Silas moved on that hesitation. He shoved the card into the scanner rig, forcing it back so its beams snapped away. Elyra was already at the door panel, and her fingers moved fast. The Bay SEAL fought her, then gave a narrow release like a reluctant favor. The door cracked open, and they slipped into the corridor. They walked like they belonged there. They did not run. Not yet. Behind them, Rusk's voice cut through the clinic air. "SEAL and file order active," Rusk said. Silas did not look back. He only listened to the boots that began to follow. A few minutes later, they had one job, and it was ugly. Look ordinary, move forward, and do not get sealed into a file. They crossed into the Siltworks, the station's working belly. Cameras pretended to watch everything, and everyone pretended not to notice. Catwalks crisscrossed overhead, and vents breathed hot air. Welding sparks fell like cheap fireworks. It smelled like oil, disinfectant, and recycled oxygen used too many times. Silas kept his steps, even because the new speed in his head was a trap. Every light was too bright, and every motor sounded too loud. The station vibration under his boots felt like a hammer tapping his bones. Elyra stayed tight at his side and kept them moving as one unit. She was not dragging him, and she was not leading him. She was placing him where a camera would read them as routine. "Do not look around," Elyra said. "I need to see, or I missed the gap," Silas said. "You need to breathe," Elyra said. "Count your steps. Keep it boring." Silas tried, and the Graft punished him for noticing too much. A forklift beeped behind him, and his muscles jumped before his mind could approve it. Elyra touched his elbow, gentle and firm. "In through your nose," Elyra said. "Out slow. You spike. They find you," Elyra said. Silas nodded once and held the rhythm. He could feel the urge to move faster and force space open. He did not. Ahead, a security arch sat at the mouth of a service corridor like an airport gate. 2 compliance officers stood near it, watching the crowd flow. Their blank faces were the danger. The corridor led to freight elevators. Freight elevators led to lower decks. Lower decks led to the Palimpsest Bazaar, where House Mneme did business under the polite fiction of salvage exchange. Elyra leaned close. "We walk through like we belong," Elyra said. "How?" Silas said. "Because you still have a medic tag for now," Elyra said. "Do not make me use it twice." They approached with a group of welders, pushing a cart of scrap. Elyra lifted her tablet. Not flashy, just visible enough to read as paperwork. The guard glanced at her badge, then at Silas, then back to the line. Silas felt the guard linger on his throat and forced his chin down the way tired people do. The arch swept them, and a soft tone sounded, neutral and undecided. Silas held his breath for a beat too long and felt his throat prickle. Elyra spoke before the pause could become a question. "Needleward consult follow-up," Elyra said. "High-risk contamination exposure." The guard flinched like she had said fire in a crowded theater. He stepped back and waved them through, eager to keep the idea away from his shift. They cleared the gate and turned into the corridor without changing pace. Silas did not relax because he could still hear boots behind them, measuring patient, keeping distance. Elyra guided him into a side alcove between coolant pipes. It was narrow and loud, and it blocked line of sight. "How bad are you?" Elyra said. Everything is sharp, Silas said. That is the graft, Elyra said. It buys you time and charges interest. You can keep walking if you do not turn this into a sprint, Elyra said. Silas let out a slow breath and kept his hand from shaking too much. I can keep walking, Silas said. If you run, you spike, Elyra said. If you spike, Rust gets a clean read. Silas nodded, because she was right. Elyra pressed a dull patch to his collar, like tape on a cracked tool handle. This hush film patch will blur cheap sensors, Elyra said. Not the good ones. How long? Silas said. Long enough to reach the elevators, Elyra said. After that, we are guests in a house that charges for air. They stepped out and kept moving. The freight elevators were ahead under harsh work lights. Silas counted his steps like a man counting the last dollars in his wallet. The elevators dropped them into the lower decks where the air ran cooler and the walls ran dirtier. The place felt like the underside of a mall, all service doors and humming machinery. Signs were minimal because nobody wanted their route remembered. Elyra led Silas into a break room that smelled like stale coffee and overheated plastic. A few dockhands sat hunched over screens, eating for packets. Nobody looked up long. In the lower decks, curiosity was a quick way to get hurt. Silas sat because his hands had started to tremble. The Graft kept pushing him to stay ready. Ready was not the same as stable. Elyra slid a water pouch into his palm. Drink, small sips, Elyra said. Silas did, and the water tasted flat. It did not matter. Elyra moved to a wall terminal that looked abandoned. She pulled a thin cable from her kit and plugged in like she had done it 100 times. What are you doing? Silas said. Finding out why you were in that gurney, Elyra said. You were not the first human to get hurt here. You were the one they wanted to let die, Elyra said. Silas felt something cold settle in his stomach. My team, Silas said. Elyra tapped a sequence and a log stub opened, half erased and badly stitched back together. She stared at it for a long beat before speaking. They marked it as an industrial mishap, Elyra said. A pressure door fault. A clean accident. Silas leaned forward and the Graft made his focus too clean. That is a lie, isn't it? Silas said. It is a story that keeps people employed, Elyra said. Freight notes and handoff schedules flickered onto the screen. Elyra tracked a pattern and her face tightened. There's a reason they are moving so fast, Elyra said. Silas watched the code scroll and felt fear sharpen. Elyra pointed at one term that kept repeating, buried under harmless-looking cargo labels. Loom writ, Elyra said. What is that? Silas said. A lane key, Elyra said. Like a pass that opens a locked highway ramp. It decides who can use the leftway lanes when normal routes get shut, Elyra said. Silas felt his throat go dry. Why does it matter? Silas said. Because if someone controls it, they can choke supply, Elyra said. Food, medicine, parts. Whole stations get hungry without. A single shot fired, Elyra said. Silas stared at the terminal, and the room took on a different shape. And it is here, Silas said. It is moving through the palimpsest bazaar, Elyra said. House Mneme territory. Silas looked at her and forced his voice level. Is that why I got left to die? Silas said. Elyra did not soften it. I think you were meant to vanish quietly, Elyra said. So nobody asked questions when the key changed hands. Silas pushed himself up, and his ribs protested. The world flared too bright, and he blinked hard and held the breath rhythm. What is our goal? Silas said. We reach the bazaar, Elyra said. We learn who has it, and we do not let either side take you alive, Elyra said. Silas nodded once. Then we go now, Silas said. Elyra unplugged the cable and wiped the terminal clean. She pulled her coat tight, checked the corridor, and gave Silas a look. It was not romance and not pity. It was commitment under pressure. Stay close, Elyra said. They moved into the palimpsest bazaar through a corridor of vendor shutters and dim panels. It felt like a back alley dressed up as a shopping strip. You could buy tools, food packs, fake badges, and favors. Silas walked like her shadow, head down and hands loose. He refused the fighter stance the Graft begged for. Elyra walked calm and clinical like she belonged. A drone drifted overhead, slow and bored. Its lens swept faces like a cashier scanning barcodes. Silas felt it pause on him a fraction longer, and his throat prickled again. Elyra leaned close. Do not stare at it, Elyra said. I can't hear to just. Can it read me? Silas said. It can read reactions, Elyra said. So do not give it one. A voice cut through the low chatter, smooth and friendly. It was too friendly for a place like this. Dr. Sorn, you look like you are having a long night, the voice said. Elyra stopped without flinching and kept her posture steady. Silas felt the hairs on his arms rise. A woman stepped from a stall that sold old sensor parts. She wore plain clothes and a careful smile. Her eyes were bright and cold at the same time. Broker Tamsin WIR. Elyra kept her tone neutral. You know my name? Elyra said. I know. Many names, Tamsin said. Her gaze slid to Silas' throat like a trained shopper checking a seal. And you brought something rare, Tamsin said. Silas kept his face blank and forced his breathing slow. His mind ran distance and timing anyway. Tamsin spread her hands in polite theater. Relax. I'm not here to cause trouble, Tamsin said. I'm here to offer a better kind of trouble. We're just passing through, Elyra said. Tamsin nodded as if she believed it and did not care. Passing through costs, Tamsin said. Everything costs. Even breathing in this hall has a price tag. We are not buying, Silas said. Tamsin smiled wider. Then you'll be paying in something else, Tamsin said. The drone overhead shifted and a second drone rose from behind a vendor counter. It moved like a bug crawling into the air. This one was smaller and faster, and its needle arm was already extended. Silas saw it in the corner of his vision, and his body wanted to lunge. Elyra squeezed his sleeve, a warning through fabric. A man stepped into view behind Tamsin, cutting off the corridor path. He was lean and quiet, and his eyes were fixed on Silas like a measurement. Runner Jalen Varon. Just a sample, Jalen said. Quick, clean, then you walk out. You are not touching me, Silas said. Tamsin sighed like he was rude at a restaurant. Listen, Silas, Tamsin said. You do not even know what you are carrying in your blood right now. House Mneme will pay to understand it, Tamsin said. Solstice Compliance will pay to erase it. You are in demand, Tamsin said. We are leaving, Elyra said. Tamsin lifted a hand, and the sampler drone darted forward. Silas moved fast but tight, stepping in and slapping the drone sideways into the wall panel. He pinned it with his palm, and the needle arm scraped plating and sparked. The surge made his senses sharpen until the world hurt. Slow down, do not spike, Elyra said. Silas forced his jaw to unclench and kept his breath controlled. He ripped the drone battery pack free and let the body drop. A second drone surged in from above, and Silas heard it before he saw it. His head snapped up, bright lights stabbed his eyes, and pain flashed behind his forehead. Jalen stepped forward, hand already reaching for a compact sampler tool on his belt. Silas shifted to the side, caught Jalen's wrist, and turned it just enough to break the grip. It was not showy. It was practical. Jalen hissed and pulled back, eyes narrowing in surprise. Tamsin's smile vanished for the first time. Careful, Tamsin said. You are lighting up the room. Silas felt it too and hated it. The graft was pushing him toward panic speed, and panic speed would paint him in sensor logs like a flare. Elyra made a choice without speech. She pulled a small device from inside her coat and clicked it once. The pulse veil jammer did not scream, it pulsed. The nearest panels flickered like a brownout, and the hovering drone wobbled and lost lock for a breath. That breath was all they needed. Elyra grabbed Silas' sleeve and pulled him into a side shutter behind stacked crates. Silas shoved the shutter up, and they slipped into a narrow service crawl that smelled like coolant and dust. Behind them, Tamsin's voice followed, calm again. You cannot hide from both sides, Tamsin said. You'll be priced either way. Jalen's boots clanged on the deck as he gave chase, then slowed. He knew the tunnels too, and he was not angry. He was patient. Elyra and Silas crawled through the service run, then dropped into a maintenance bay with a manual latch. Elyra sealed it with hands that shook, and she refused to let that shake reach her voice. Silas pressed his back to the wall and tried to breathe like an ordinary man. The noise of the bazaar still rang in his ears, and his hands trembled harder now. Elyra knelt beside him and kept her eyes on his. Look at me, Elyra said. Silas did, and the dimmer light helped. The bay was still loud, but it was not a stage. Count with me, Elyra said. In out slow. Silas followed, and the spike eased a fraction. Elyra's eyes stayed locked on his throat, on the place the drone wanted to pierce. They got a look, not a sample, Elyra said. Is that good? Silas said. It is not enough to sell, Elyra said. But it is enough to mark you. Silas closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them. So now both factions want us, Silas said. Elyra nodded once. Solstice Compliance will come from above, Elyra said. House Mneme will come from the shadows. Silas pushed himself up, slow and controlled. Then we keep moving, Silas said. We move before they turn the station into a locked hallway, Elyra said. Later, their window narrowed to one ugly trip. Get to a pickup in the ice reef belt, grab the loom-rit, and get out before either side could close the door behind them. The ice reef belt was the kind of place pilots compared to driving through hail with your headlights off. Chunks of dirty ice and dead paneling drifted in slow spins. Everything looked harmless until it clipped your hull. Silas sat strapped into a battered service skiff that smelled like old coolant and cheap wipes. Elyra sat beside him with one hand on a small kit. The other hand rested on the throttle lever. Neither of them talked much. Talking did not make the belt safer. Silas kept his breathing slow because the Graft wanted speed. It wanted him twitchy and sharp, ready to fight shadows. Shadows were everywhere out here. Elyra broke the silence first. We are going because the loom-rit is our only clean bargaining chip, Elyra said. And because if someone is out there, we do not leave them. Silas did not argue and kept his eyes on the drift. He hated that she was right, and he hated that he agreed. How far? Silas said. A few minutes at low burn, Elyra said. If we light up the engines, everyone sees us. The skiff drifted using small attitude puffs that barely nudged it forward. Ahead, a cluster of cargo containers hung together under magnetic clamps. One container carried a faded relief mark, like a donated box outside a grocery store. The paint was fresh enough to look comforting and wrong at the same time. That is a lure, Silas said. Yes, Elyra said. A second shape floated near the container stack. A person in a patchwork suit, tethered at the waist. The helmet visor was cracked and taped. The body was still, not dead, not safe, just waiting. He is alive, Silas said. A weak signal pulsed on the receiver, low power and deliberate, like a caller who wanted you to pick up. Elyra cut the receiver volume and kept flying. Silas watched the tethered worker as the skiff slid closer. The man lifted an arm a fraction, like begging, without believing it would work. We do this fast, Elyra said. We do not play hero. Silas understood without liking it. Do not get trapped, do not get proud, do not get recorded. The skiff eased into cover behind a spinning slab of ice. Silas clipped a safety line to his harness and checked his gloves. He did not carry a gun because guns were allowed in records. He carried a compact cutting tool that looked like something you would keep in a shop drawer. Elyra handed him a second line and a small latch hook. If you drift, I pull you back, Elyra said. If you get grabbed, I pull you back, Silas said. Elyra met his eyes, and it was not romance. It was a contract. They had already burned their old lives. Now, they moved like people who knew it. Silas pushed out of the side hatch and into the belt. The universe went quiet the moment his boots left the deck. Quiet did not mean calm. It meant your mistakes could not be heard until they hit. He moved by tether in small kicks, keeping his body in the skiff shadow. The tethered worker came into clearer view. Tired posture, promised a paycheck, and handed a trap. Silas reached the container frame and grabbed a handhold. The metal was cold through his gloves. He heard faint clicks, not from ice, from something powered and waiting. He looked toward the worker, and a man shook his head, small and desperate. Silas opened a private channel. He is warning us, Silas said. I know, Elyra said. I'm seeing extra pings. Stay tight. Silas kicked toward the worker anyway. He could not leave him, and the thought stuck in his chest like a nail. When Silas got close enough, he saw the eyes behind the fog visor, wide and alert. Can you move? Silas said. The worker swallowed, and his voice crackled through suit audio. They said they would let me go if I stayed still, Brand said. Who? Silas said. People who smile, Brand said. Silas set the cutting tool against the tether lock, but did not cut yet. Cutting too early could send Brand spinning into the belt. Silas checked the container seam and saw fresh welds in the wrong pattern. The relief mark was paint, and the container was a stage. Elyra's voice came through, low and sharp. We have company, Elyra said. Two small craft holding far, pretending to be scrap. Silas stayed still against the frame and kept his breathing measured. I see the angles, Silas said. What is our move? Free the worker, then get inside the container, Elyra said. The loom-rit is likely mounted in there. We touch it, we leave, Elyra said. Silas looked at Bran and made it simple. What is your name? Silas said. Bran hesitated like names could get you killed, then said it anyway. Bran Doss, please, Bran said. Silas nodded once. Bran, listen, Silas said. I'm going to move you slow, Silas said. If you panic, you drift. If you drift, you die. Can you do slow? Silas said. Bran's breath hitched. I can do slow, Bran said. Silas triggered the cutter, and the lock released with a faint snap. He grabbed Bran's tether and clipped it to his own line. 2 weak anchors became one stronger one. Then Silas' suit receiver chirped, forced open by someone else. A smooth voice filled his ear. "That is very kind, Silas," the voice said. "Kindness makes you predictable." Silas did not answer and kept his hand steady. Elyra cut in. "Do not talk," Elyra said. "Move." Silas pulled Bran close and angled them toward the container door. The door cracked outward with a soft hiss, like an airlock pretending to be a donation bin. Inside was not supplies. It was hollow, clean, and wired. A small lens sat in the ceiling corner, and another pointed at the floor. Everything about it said record. Silas pulled Bran in first and kept the tether tight. Bran's boots touched the floor, and he staggered, looking around with shame. "They said it was a job," Bran said. "It is still a job," Silas said. "Stay behind me." Silas stepped inside and smelled sterile plastic and fresh adhesive. Somebody had built this recently, and they built it to look ordinary at a glance. At the far end, mounted on a frame, sat a palm-sized block in a protective cradle. It looked boring on purpose, like a badge reader you would walk past at a warehouse. Silas knew it anyway. "Loomrit." Elyra's voice came through. "That is it," Elyra said. "Touch and pull. We do not stay." Silas moved toward it one careful step at a time. The lenses did not blink. They watched. Bran's breathing got loud in the suit audio. "They are recording, aren't they?" Bran said. "Yes," Silas said. He put his gloved palm on the Loomrit cradle. The container lights sharpened like stage lighting, and a pleasant tone sounded, sweet and wrong. A small display near the mount lit up. The console displayed a line that read, "Acquisition verified." Silas felt his stomach drop, because this was not just theft. It was consent to be seen. Elyra heard the tone through his mic. "They tagged the moment," Elyra said. Silas ripped the Loomrit free and shoved it into an inner pocket tight against his body. The Graft sharpened his senses until the container edges looked like knife lines. A software rose behind him. A sampler drone unfolded from a wall recess, needle arm sliding out with calm confidence. "No," Bran said. Silas stepped between the drone and Bran without thinking. He grabbed the drone housing and twisted it into the floor, pinning it with his forearm. The needle arm scraped the metal deck and sparked. Pain flared behind Silas' eyes, and the Graft begged for a surge. "Do not surge," Elyra said. "Hold it down and breathe." Silas clenched his jaw and forced air in, out, slow. The drone bucked under him, trying to lift. Outside the container, the smooth voice returned, amused. "Good form," the voice said. "You look expensive." "Elyra, open the hatch now," Silas said. "I am open," Elyra said. "You have a window." Silas yanked the drone battery pack free, and the machine sagged. He grabbed Bran by the harness ring. "Move," Silas said. Bran stumbled toward the door. Silas pushed him out, tether first, then body, then followed. He let the dead drone shell spin away into the belt like trash. They kicked toward the skiff, and Elyra leaned out of the hatch, braced, ready to haul. Silas kept Bran close and kept his movement controlled. A shadow moved behind the container stack, and one of the small craft drifted into view. It came close enough to show fake scrape marks on its hull. Another craft held farther out, lining up on a tether like it wanted a clean cut. Elyra clicked the pulse veil jammer once. The nearest craft wobbled as its sensors stuttered, then blinked. That blink was enough. Silas shoved Bran into Elyra's grip. "Elyra, haul Bran inside," with a sound like pure refusal. Silas pulled himself in next, and his ribs screamed. Elyra slammed the hatch shut and threw the lock. The skiff engines lit low and tight. Elyra eased it using debris as cover, threading between ice slabs like a driver between trucks in heavy rain. Silas sat on the deck plates and tried to keep his breathing quiet. He could hear his own heartbeat too clearly, and that was the Graft turning gift into threat. Bran lay on the bench, helmet still on, crying without sound. Elyra checked his suit seal and shoved a water pouch into his hands. "You are alive," Elyra said. "Keep breathing." Bran nodded, shaking. Silas pressed his fingers to the Loomrit in his pocket and felt exposure more than victory. "They recorded the touch," Elyra said. "Where did it send?" Silas said. Elyra's face tightened. "Everywhere that pays," Elyra said. Back inside Mire Basilica, the clip looped on secure screens. Warden Lysander Quill watched it in a quiet control room, while Auditor Maya Rusk stood beside him with calm eyes and folded arms. The footage showed Silas inside the container with his hand on the Loomrit and his face clear enough to identify. It showed Elyra's badge and their exit line, and it made the station feel smaller. "This is no longer a Needleward incident," Rusk said. "It never was," Quill said. "We forward to Undersecretary Corvin Halbrecht," Rusk said. "He will want the loom writ. And he will want the medic who broke policy," Rusk said. "And the human," Quill said. "Especially the human," Rusk said. "The overtone spike is clean in the clip. It proves the graft, and it proves they are actionable," Rusk said. Quill watched the clip one more time. "Raise the net," Quill said. "Close casual exits. Keep one corridor open." Rusk's lips twitched. "A funnel," Rusk said. In darker places, the same clip played again. Broker Tamsin WYR watched it in a back room of the Palimpsest Bazaar, while runner Jalen Varen leaned against the wall, wrists still sore. Matron Ilith Vale was not there in person. Her voice came through a speaker, soft and final. "That is our product now," Matron Vale said. "Alive is more valuable than broken. Solstice Compliance will chase," Tamsin said. "We do not need to race them. He has the loom writ," Jalen said. "He will leave if we let him." "We will not let him," Matron Vale said. Tamsin smiled. "We let him think he is leaving," Tamsin said. "We guide him." Back in the skiff, Silas felt the cost showing up in his body. His hands would not fully stop shaking, and his eyes burned like he had not blinked in hours. Brand sat upright now, with helmet off, face pale. He stared at the loom writ pocket like it was a bomb. "What did I drag you into?" Brand said. "A fight between people who sell control," Silas said. Elyra kept the skiff low behind drifting ice and dead panels. She checked their route line, and her face went tight. "They're collapsing the exits," Elyra said. "Solstice Compliance?" Silas said. "Solstice Compliance from above and House Mneme from the sides," Elyra said. "They are coordinating without speaking." "Why me?" Brand said. "Because a living witness makes the clip feel real," Elyra said. "They used you to make the trap feel clean." "Where's our door?" Silas said. Elyra pointed at the NAV line, one thin path glowing in a field of closed options. "There," Elyra said. One corridor back into Mire Basilica. One docking throat that did not shut. Silas felt the Graft flare at the idea of being forced. He wanted to fight, to hit something, to solve pressure with motion. Elyra touched his sleeve, grounding him. "We win by staying functional," Elyra said. "Not by being loud." Silas exhaled slow. "Then we stay functional," Silas said. They came back through the one open clamp, like it was a runway pointed into a storm. The docking throat felt like a boarding bridge when the gate agent closes the door early. Harsh lights, narrow rails, and nowhere to step aside. Elyra kept the skiff steady through the final meters. Silas sat with the loom writ pressed against his ribs, breathing slow through the ringing in his head. Brand sat strapped behind them, still shaking, still alive, still proof. Elyra whispered. "We are going to cause a freight safety incident," Elyra said. "On purpose," Silas said. "On purpose," Elyra said. "Stations do not fear guns, they fear blame." Silas swallowed and forced the graft down. "What do you need from me?" Silas said. "I need you to look like a problem that cannot be ignored," Elyra said. "Then I need you to stay quiet while I make the station trip over its own rules." The clamp engaged with a hard thunk. Their systems locked into local control, like a car, pulling into a garage that owned the remote. A voice came over the dock speaker, calm and cold. "Hold position, await screening," the voice said. Elyra did not answer, and stepped onto the dock like she belonged there. Silas followed with shoulders loose and eyes low. Brand followed last, guided by Elyra's hand at his elbow. The first checkpoint was a scanner arch, and two guards trained to notice nothing until it mattered. One guard raised a palm. "State your purpose," the guard said. "Emergency freight integrity check," Elyra said. "Possible contamination exposure from outside debris." The guard hesitated because nobody wanted the word contamination on their shift. He waved them through faster than he should have. The arch swept Silas and lingered for a fraction. His throat prickled, and he forced his breath slow. Elyra slapped a seal strip across a side panel on the arch, the kind used in clinics and warehouses. "Sensor interference," Elyra said. "You want a name on that report?" The guard stepped back like the strip was fire. He pointed down the corridor. "Go," the guard said. They moved. The freight deck opened into a maze of pallets, cranes, and conveyor lanes. It smelled like plastic wrap, coolant, and scorched metal. Elyra headed straight for a freight kiosk labeled with boring words about safety and intake. She plugged her tablet into the port, and her fingers moved fast. Silas stood with his back to her, watching angles and listening for boots. Bran leaned close with a thin voice. What are you doing? Bran said. I am making the station afraid to touch us, Elyra said. The kiosk asked for clearance, and Elyra kept her face blank. She slid the loom writ against the reader for a single beat, then pulled it away. The kiosk chimed like it had been given permission it could not deny. Silas felt the chill of systems being told this input was valid. Elyra typed a few lines and hit submit. The deck lights shifted to tired amber, and a soft warning tone rolled through the space. An announcement played calm as a store intercom. Freight integrity hold in effect, the voice said. Suspend non-essential movement. Await safety routing. Workers. Froze carts and a crane stopped mid-swing. The whole deck stepped back from motion like people stepping back from a spill. You just shut down the dock, Silas said. I started a liability event, Elyra said. Now, they have to investigate before they can pretend nothing happened. Footsteps came fast from the far corridor, urgent without running. Warden Lysander Quill appeared with a small team, eyes locked on Elyra. Dr. Sorn, step away from the kiosk, Quill said. Freight integrity hold is active, Elyra said. You do not want to override it. Quill's gaze flicked to Silas, then Bran, then back. He looked like he was calculating a clean outcome. Silas felt the Graft stir as Quill's team spread out. They carried nets and cuffs, built to capture, not kill. Elyra leaned towards Silas. Do not fight yet, Elyra said. Let them choke on procedure. Quill tapped his wrist unit, and the speakers clicked again. All personnel clear lane 12, Quill said. Solstice Compliance Directorate will assume control of the hold. You cannot, Elyra said. Not clean. Not fast. Quill stepped closer. You are flagged, Quill said. The hold does not protect you. The hold protects the station, Elyra said. That is the point. Bran spoke before he could stop himself. They used me, Bran said. They tied me to the container. They told me to stay still. They filmed it. Quill looked at Bran like a receipt that complicates his day. Silas felt his hands tremble and forced his jaw to unclench. You want to grab us? Then do it in front of your own hold, Elyra said. With witnesses and a safety log running. That is your choice, Elyra said. Quill paused because pauses make records. Behind him, workers complained about cranes, routing, and badge violations, and the deck began to behave like a crowd. Quill shifted the goal instead of backing off. Escort them to the incident review desk, Quill said. Elyra nodded like that was what she wanted. It was. They moved with Quill's team on both sides. It was not freedom, it was controlled motion, exactly what Elyra needed. Inside the incident room, the air was colder and the lighting softer. It felt like a clinic trying to calm people down before they became loud. Quill stood by the door, posture ready. In the hold, Quill said. I cannot, Elyra said. It has to. Clear through the backbone. Quill's eyes narrowed. You mean the spine gallery, Quill said. Elyra gave a small shrug. The station is built that way, Elyra said. You know it. A second door had a service label and a reader plate. Elyra walked toward it with her tablet, like she was going to fetch a supervisor. Quill nodded to an officer, and the officer followed. Silas moved too, close enough to block without looking like he was blocking. Now, Elyra said. The reader beeped and turned green. The door cracked open. Silas stepped into the officer's path, shoulder squared like a man refusing to be pushed aside in a crowded hallway. The officer tried to shove past, and Silas caught the forearm and turned it into the wall, quick and contained. Not here, Silas said. The officer pulled back, surprised by Silas' strength. Elyra slipped through the door, Silas followed, and Bran stumbled after. Stop, Quill said. Elyra hit the door control, and the panel tried to shut. Quill jammed a boot into the gap, forcing it back open. Silas saw a net launcher in another officer's hands. He kicked the door edge closed with his heel for a beat, pinning Quill's boot, then shoved the panel with his shoulder. The door slid shut with Quill outside it. Elyra grabbed Bran and pulled him down the service hall. Silas stayed between them and the door, listening. You cannot run into the spine gallery. It will seal you in, Quill said through the metal. Then do not chase us in there, Elyra said. They ran only as much as they had to. The service corridor felt like the inside of a power plant, clean panels, narrow turns. A hum in the walls sounded like a deep breath held too long. Silas fought to keep his steps controlled. The lights flickered once, and his eyes burned as the Graft tried to climb again. They reached a junction with a wall terminal. Elyra slammed her tablet into the port and pulled access logs. Not everything, just signature chains tied to the loom writ clip and freight hold overrides. Silas held position at the corner and listened. Bran crouched behind a panel with hands over his ears. Footsteps echoed behind them, closer now. A cool voice joined them. You are making this worse, Rusk said. I'm making it visible, Elyra said. Rusk stepped into view with the scanner rig floating beside her. Quill appeared behind her, and their team fanned out to block retreat. Silas felt heat roll through him as the Graft pushed toward overload. Elyra spoke without looking up. Silas, left light panel. Now, Elyra said. Silas slapped the panel, and the corridor lights dropped one notch. The change eased the stabbing in his eyes, and threw the scanner rig off its preferred setting for breath. Stand down, Rusk said. Silas stepped into a narrow space between wall ribs so a net would need a straight hit. Quill nodded to his officer. The net fired. Silas ducked sideways, and the net slapped the wall behind him. He grabbed the trailing line and yanked, dragging the launcher arm down. The officer stumbled. Silas drove a short elbow into the officer's shoulder and forced the launcher to the floor. Not for pride, for space. Rusk sent the scanner rig forward, hunting Silas' throat. Elyra slapped a hush film patch across the rig lens mid-drift. The rig chirped and wobbled. Rusk's eyes hardened. That is assault on compliance equipment, Rusk said. Elyra finally turned. Then arrest me here, Elyra said. In the spine gallery corridor, in the middle of a freight integrity hold. Put it in the log. Rusk hesitated because she was calculating, not fearing. Elyra used that hesitation. Elyra pulled a small data bundle from the terminal and sent it into a safety queue. It was not sent to a friend. It was sent into routing the station treated like a fire alarm. The terminal chirped, and the console displayed a line that read, Submission received. Quill stepped forward, and Control slipped for a breath. What did you send? Quill said. Your signatures, Elyra said. The corridor speakers crackled, and a higher-rang voice filled the space. Solstice Compliance Directorate units, hold position, the voice said. Spine gallery corridor is now under internal review. Quill froze because the system told him he was being watched. Elyra leaned toward Silas. We have a crack, Elyra said. We pushed through it. Silas swallowed hard and felt the spike coming like a storm. Elyra squeezed his sleeve. Slow, Elyra said. I'm trying, Silas said. They moved past Quill and Rusk in a narrow line, using procedural paralysis as cover. Quill's eyes tracked them with the promise of later. They reached the spine gallery. Access door. Elyra pressed the loom writ to the reader for a single beat. The door unlocked, and the air on the other side felt colder, cleaner, and more dangerous. Undersecretary Corbin Halbrecht did not look like a man who chased fugitives. He looked like a man who owned time. His face appeared on a wall display inside the spine gallery, crisp and steady. The room was a control bay of smooth panels and quiet hums, like the station's brainstem. Dr. Elyra Sorn, Silas Rourke, Halbrecht said, You have created a station-wide disruption. You were going to seize us anyway, Elyra said. Halbrecht's gaze flicked to Bran, then back. You brought a witness, Halbrecht said. That is inconvenient. Bran flinched, and Silas stepped half a pace to block him. Halbrecht continued like he was discussing scheduling. You have the loom writ, Halbrecht said, and you have broadcast internal signatures into a safety queue. That was clever, Halbrecht said. It buys minutes, Elyra said. It buys minutes, Halbrecht said. It does not buy you an exit. Silas forced his voice steady. What do you want? Silas said. Halbrecht paused like he respected direct questions. I want the loom writ returned to controlled custody, Halbrecht said. I want the human anomaly secured for evaluation, Halbrecht said. And I want this incident closed quietly. Elyra's jaw tightened. Quietly means erased, Elyra said. Halbrecht did not deny it. Quietly means the station continues to function, Halbrecht said. You're already starving the exits, Elyra said. You left one corridor. You are forcing a funnel, Elyra said. Halbrecht's eyes stayed calm. Funnels keep crowds from panicking, Halbrecht said. Funnels keep targets from escaping, Silas said. Halbrecht did not correct him. Elyra shifted her stance. If you take him, you turn a person into property, Elyra said. I turn chaos into order, Halbrecht said. That is my job. Then he offered the deal clean and brutal. Hand over Silas and the loom writ, Halbrecht said. Your medic privileges are restored, Halbrecht said. Your flag is removed. You go back to work. Elyra stared at the screen and did not blink. And the leftway lanes? Elyra said. The lanes will flow for those who cooperate, Halbrecht said. The threat clarified itself, and it was colder than a gun. Halbrecht was not threatening them with violence. He was threatening the sector with hunger. Silas felt cold move through his chest. He had seen men threaten with fists. This was a hand on a valve. You would cut food and medicine to make a point? Elyra said. Halbrecht stayed calm. I would cut illegal flow to stop illegal markets, Halbrecht said. The stations will adapt. People will die, Brand said. Halbrecht looked at Brand like a number. People die every day, Halbrecht said. The question is whether they die in disorder. Silas felt his hands shake harder, and the graft pushed him toward motion. Elyra noticed and stepped close, placing her hand over his forearm, stabilizing. Stay with me, Elyra said. I am here, Silas said. Halbrecht watched the gesture. Dr. Sorn, you are emotionally attached to your liability, Halbrecht said. Elyra lifted her chin. He is not my liability, Elyra said. He is my patient. Halbrecht nodded once. Then choose your patient or choose your career, Halbrecht said. You cannot keep both. Elyra bought seconds with a question. If I hand it over, how do I know you will not still erase us? Elyra said. Halbrecht's smile was faint. Because I keep my agreements, Halbrecht said. I write them. Silas slid to a side panel and yanked open an access hatch with his cutting tool. Cold air poured out, loud and steady, adding noise and cooling his face enough to ease the spike for a breath. Elyra used that breath. Her fingers flew over the console, pulling the signature chain tied to Halbrecht's funnel routing. Quill's name, Rusk's name, Halbrecht's authorization. A sequence of approvals that shaped the single open corridor like a noose. The console beeped a warning about restricted access. Elyra pressed the loom writ to the reader for a beat, and the warning softened. Do not do that, Halbrecht said. Elyra did not stop and sent the proof into the safety queue again. The room speakers clicked, and a station announcement started. Cut, then tried again. Halbrecht stayed composed, but his voice sharpened. You just escalated this, Halbrecht said. Elyra met his gaze. You escalated it when you decided hunger was a tool, Elyra said. Silas heard boots outside the spine gallery door. Multiple teams, and the funnel was closing from the other side now. Halbrecht spoke one final sentence, soft and deadly. Then you have chosen to be corrected, Halbrecht said. The wall display went dark. Elyra looked at Silas. Move, Elyra said. Silas pushed upright, fighting the tremor. The Graft begged for speed, and he forced slow. The spine gallery door shook as someone hit it from the outside. The lock chirped, struggling. We have proof in the queue, Elyra said. That buys us one last window. Then we spend it, Silas said. Minutes later, the door opened a handspan and stopped on a safety catch. There were no flashing guns, only disciplined bodies and polite equipment. Quill stood in front with two officers, and Rusk was there with her tablet and scanner rig hovering like a patient spider. Behind them, in the corridor shadow, Tamsin leaned against the wall like she had all the time in the world. Silas, you are making the whole station famous, Tamsin said. Rusk's eyes flicked toward Tamsin, then away. She did not like mixed jurisdictions, but she liked results. Elyra stepped forward with hands visible, blocking the console. This is an internal review event, Elyra said. You are not supposed to be here. I'm always supposed to be where money is, Tamsin said. Quill lifted a hand, and his officers raised nets and cuffs. He kept his voice, even like ordering a quiet cleanup. Silas Rourke will be taken for containment, Quill said. Doctor Elyra Sorn will be detained pending review. Brandos will be moved to witness holding, Quill said. Brand flinched at his name. Silas felt his chest tighten, and the graft stirred again. Containment is a slow word, Tamsin said. I prefer transfer. You do not get to pick, Silas said. The market picks, Tamsin said. I just take notes. Elyra touched Silas' sleeve, grounding him. We are not arguing, Elyra said. We are leaving. You are not leaving, Quill said. Your undersecretary is trying to starve stations, Elyra said. And your signatures are already in the safety queue. Rusk's jaw tightened by a fraction. The words landed because they were true, and because they were recorded where nobody could pretend they did not receive them. Quill paused, calculating. That pause was the only gap they would get. Silas moved tight and controlled and went for the door catch. He slammed his shoulder into the frame, forced the door to slide, wedged the cutting tool into the seam, and twisted. The catch popped and the door opened fully. A net fired toward Silas. He dropped low and rolled sideways, and the net slapped the wall behind him. He grabbed the trailing line and yanked, pulling the launcher off balance. Rusk sent the rig forward, hunting Silas' throat. Elyra stepped into its path and slapped a hush film patch across its lens. The rig chirped and wobbled. Rusk's eyes flared. That is evidence tampering, Rusk said. Put in the log, Elyra said. Tamsin laughed softly. I like her, Tamsin said. She argues like a lawyer, and moves like a thief. Now, Elyra said. Silas grabbed Bran by the harness ring and shoved him through the doorway first. Bran stumbled into the corridor and froze when he saw shadows down the hall. Jalen stepped into view with 2 handlers. They carried restraint packs and a sampler case, and none of them looked excited. They looked paid. You made it public, Jalen said. Now we have to take you fast. They cannot sell you at full price if the whole station knows your face, Elyra said. Silas forced his voice steady. So they want me before the review locks them out? Silas said. Jalen nodded once. Alive, clean, Jalen said. No bruises if possible. Careful with him, Tamsin said. He is noisy when he gets cornered. Silas wanted a lunge, to break the corridor open with force. He did not, because he could not afford a spike. Elyra grabbed his wrist. We are not fighting both teams here, Elyra said. We run them into each other. Ow, Silas said. Elyra pointed down the hall toward a service ladder and a simple sign that read Spine Maintenance Access. We go up, Elyra said. We force them to choose who crosses whose line. I cannot climb, Bran said. We climb because it is the only route that is not already owned, Silas said. You climb because staying here means being carried. Bran swallowed hard. Okay, Bran said. Silas pushed Bran toward the ladder. Elyra went behind him, hands ready to catch. Jalen's team moved in silent and fast. A handler raised a cinch net pack. Silas yanked a loose wall panel down as he moved. The panel clanged and the sound bounced, and a Solstice officer flinched and stepped wrong. That wrong step bumped into one of Jalen's handlers. For a breath, the 2 factions collided in the same narrow hallway. Clear the lane, Quill said. Your lane is not my lane, Jalen said. That friction was their opening. Silas hauled Bran up the first rungs, and Elyra followed, pushing from below. A net fired upward and caught the ladder rail. It missed Silas by 1 heartbeat. Silas climbed with muscles burning and ribs protesting. Elyra climbed under him with controlled breathing and wide eyes. Silas pulled Bran onto the upper platform and rolled him aside. Elyra climbed up last and slammed the hatch shut. Below, the corridor filled with arguing footsteps. Above, the service level was quieter, colder, and full of humming panels. Elyra pressed her palm to the loom writ pocket at Silas' ribs. We do not need to win this station, Elyra said. We need to reach the Weftway door. Where is it? Silas said. Elyra pointed down the service run, where a single green light blinked like a runway marker in fog. That, Elyra said. They moved in a controlled rush, not a sprint, spending their last safe seconds. Silas needed to stay functional long enough to open the Weftway door. Once his senses tipped, he would stop being helpful and start being loud. They reached a narrow junction with pipes overhead and a door with a simple reader plate. Elyra stopped and spoke quick and clear. I open the door, Elyra said. You hold the line. Bran stays behind me. Do it, Silas said. Elyra pressed the loom writ to the reader. The reader beeped green, then hesitated like it was double-checking a lie. Behind them, the hatch clanged. Quill's team had found the service run, and Jalen would not be far. Silas turned to face the threat and set his feet. He stood like a man in a doorway. A Solstice officer pushed through first with a net pack raised. Quill and Rusk followed, calm and close. Rusk's rig hovered at her side with a clean lens. She looked at Silas' throat like a reader looking at a barcode. Silas Rourke, step aside, Quill said. Not today, Silas said. The net pack fired. Silas caught the net edge with his forearm and turned so it wrapped his shoulder instead of his neck. He used the pole to spin the firing officer into the wall. The speed made his senses surge like a wave, and the Graft clawed upward. The lights hummed too loud. The pipe vibration felt like a drill in his skull. Silas, slow down, Elyra said. Silas tried, but his body was climbing into overload. Jalen's voice came from behind Quill. Do not damage him, Jalen said. You cannot keep him clean if he keeps moving, Tamsin said. Silas tasted metal, and his vision tunneled. He hated how predictable the spike was. Elyra saw it, and made the hard call without asking permission. Silas, I am dialing it down, Elyra said. What? Silas said. Elyra pulled a small injector from her kit, and pressed it into the side of his neck where the Graft sat. Cold spread through him, flattening the edge. His senses dulled a notch, and the world stopped screaming. Weakness slid in with it. Silas could breathe, and he could also feel his knees threaten. You took it, Silas said. I saved you from collapsing in the next minute, Elyra said. Silas swallowed, and kept his legs under him. Anger and relief tangled together in his chest. Now, Quill said. Jalen saw it too and moved like a runner, smelling the finish line. Elyra did not give them time to enjoy it. The reader flashed green again and the door clicked open, not wide, just enough to slip through. Elyra grabbed Bran first and shoved him into the doorway. Bran stumbled into darkness beyond, then turned back, terrified. "What is this?" Bran said. "A back road," Elyra said. Silas backed toward the door with hands up. "Not surrender, control." Quill moved in, and Silas met him with a hard shoulder check that kept him from crossing the threshold. Silas was weaker now, but he still had weight and will. Rusk's rig surged forward, and Elyra slapped a second patch across it to waste time. Jalen reached for Silas' wrist with a cuff. Silas twisted free, clumsier than before, and the motion cost him as his knees wobbled. "Silas, we go now," Elyra said. Silas looked at Quill, Rusk, Jalen, and Tamsin smiled behind them all. Then he stepped backward through the door. Elyra hit the control, and the panel tried to close. Quill lunged, and his hand hit the seam, and the door shuddered, fighting. Elyra pressed the loom writ to the reader again. The door snapped shut with a clean click like a lock, deciding who mattered. For one breath, the corridor went silent. Then Quill's voice came through the metal, calm and promising. "You cannot live in those lanes forever." Quill said. "You just made yourself worth chasing," Tamsin said. Silas leaned against the wall in the darkness beyond and tried to steady his breath. He was weaker, and he was alive. Elyra knelt beside him and checked his pulse with 2 fingers. Her hands were steady again. "You will hate me for a while," Elyra said. "I will thank you later," Silas said. Elyra looked at him, eyes tired and fierce. "Later is the whole point," Elyra said. The Weftway route did not look heroic. It looked like a back alley behind the galaxy's main street. Low lighting, dirty panels, old signs painted over until the first message was gone. Elyra led them forward with a loom writ like a borrowed key. Bran walked between them, quiet and shaken alive. Silas moved slower now, and that helped. The graft was dialed down, and his body felt like it was back under normal gravity. His ribs still hurt, and his hands still trembled, but the tremor was softer, more human. They reached an airlock that looked like a forgotten loading door, and Elyra keyed it open. Outside was a small freight pod, ugly and functional. It looked like something used to haul empty crates when nobody cared. "This is your plan?" Bran said. "This is our ride," Elyra said. Silas sat on the pod bench and rested his head against the wall for 1 second. He did not sleep because he did not trust sleep yet. Elyra strapped Bran in, checked his seal, then turned to Silas. Her voice softened without turning sentimental. "You did not have to pull him out of that trap," Elyra said. Silas looked at Bran, then back at Elyra. "I did," Silas said. "I just did." Elyra nodded, accepting the kind of truth you cannot argue with. The pod released and drifted into the Weftway lanes with quiet movement through a route built for people who needed to be unseen. Hours later, the pod docked at a poor, tired outpost that looked like a small town built out of shipping containers. The sign over the dock was half broken, the lights were dim, and nobody asked for permits because nobody had them. A dock worker waved them in with a tired hand. "You paying in credits or labor?" the worker said. "Labor?" "I'm a medic," Elyra said. The worker squinted at her badge and shrugged. "We have burns and broken hands," the worker said. "We have coughs that do not stop. You can work, you can stay." They stepped inside. The outpost clinic was 2 rooms and a curtain, and it smelled like bleach and old fabric. There were no fancy machines, just hands, gauze, and a table that had seen too many nights. Elyra rolled up her sleeves, and for the first time since Needle Ward, she looked like she could breathe without listening for boots. Silas sat on a bench and watched her move. She was not legal here, she was useful, and that was the only law that mattered in a place like this. Bran stood in the doorway, unsure what to do with freedom. Silas gestured him in. "You can sit. Nobody is selling you today," Silas said. "They will come for you," Bran said. "Yes," Silas said. Elyra finished washing her hands and looked at Silas. "House Mneme will not forget the loom writ," Elyra said. "Solstice Compliance will not forgive the record," Silas said. Elyra met his eyes. "And Halbrecht," Elyra said. Silas let out a slow breath. "He is stuck in review for now," Silas said. "He is not finished." Elyra stepped closer, careful like she was still learning what safety felt like. She placed her hand over Silas for a brief second, steady and real. "You are not a weapon," Elyra said. Silas looked at the dim clinic, the tired people waiting, the simple supplies. He felt weakness in his body and calm in his head, and he understood the trade. "I know," Silas said. I'm a person they tried to turn into property. Elyra nodded once. Then we keep choosing people, Elyra said. Outside, the outpost lights flickered and the galaxy kept moving freight and writing rules like knives. In here, a doctor used her hands to make a difference without permission, and a soldier learned that survival is not about shining bright. It is about staying human when the market wants you numbered. Silas Rourke did not leave Mire Basilica as a hero. He left as proof that strength always has a price, and the real fight is refusing to become property. Elyra Sorn lost her badge, but not her hands. On a poor outpost that barely exists on any map, she treated real people with real problems, no permission required. Silas stayed close. Not because he had to, but because she made one choice that mattered more than any law. She chose a person. Back on Mire Basilica, Corvin Halbrecht will keep calling hunger stability. House Mneme will keep hunting what it thinks it owns. The chase is not over. If you want the next chapter, hit like, share this story with a friend who loves grounded sci-fi, and subscribe to the channel. Because the lanes are still open, and the hunters are already moving.